is Miss Marple." Being an actress, my friend Jane Hellier was able to make a point, and this was clearly the climax of a triumphant finale. Her tone was equally compounded of reverent awe and triumph. The odd part of it was that all that was revealed in the doorway was me, a gentle, some would say fussy-looking, elderly spinster. In the eyes of the two young people who Jane had brought to meet me, there was a tinge of incredulity and dismay. They were nice-looking people. The girl, Charmian Stroud, slim and dark; the man, Edward Rossiter, a fair-haired, amiable young giant. "Oh, well, we're awfully pleased to meet you." "Darling, she is absolutely marvellous. Leave it all to her. I told you I would get her here, and I have." "You'll fix it for them, I know. It'll be easy for you." "Well, won't you tell me what all this is about?" "Well, Miss Hellier is a friend of ours, and, well, Edward and I are rather in a fix. She said she could introduce us to someone who could—"
"Jane tells us you're the last word in sleuths, Miss Marple."
"Oh, no, nothing of the kind. It's just that living in a village as I do, one gets to know so much about human nature. But really, you have made me quite curious. Do tell me your problem."
"I'm afraid it's terribly hackneyed. Just buried treasure."
Sounds most exciting."
"I know, like Treasure Island. But our problem lacks the usual romantic touches. No point on a chart indicated by a skull and crossbones. No directions like 4 paces to the left, west by north. It's horribly prosaic. Just where we ought to dig."
"Have you tried at all?"
"Oh, I should say we dug about 2 solid square acres. The whole place is ready to be turned into a market garden. We're just discussing whether to grow vegetable marrows or potatoes."
"May we really tell you all about it?" "But of course, my dear." Jane Hellier withdrew to a respectful distance, and we sat down. "Well, here goes. The story starts with Uncle Matthew. Uncle, or rather great-great-uncle, to both of us. He was incredibly ancient. Edward and I were his only relations. He was fond of us, and he always declared that when he died he would leave his money between us. Well, he died last March, and left everything he had to be divided equally between Edward and myself. What I've just said sounds rather callous. I don't mean that it was right that he died. Actually, we were very fond of him, but he'd been ill for some time. The point is that the everything turned out to be practically nothing at all. And that, frankly, was a bit of a blow to us both, wasn't it, Edward?"
You see, we sort of counted on it a bit. I mean, when you know a good bit of money's coming to you, you don't buckle down and try to make it yourself. I'm in the army. I've not got anything to speak of outside of my pay, and Charmian herself hasn't got a bean. She works as a stage manager in the repertory theatre. Quite interesting, and she enjoys it, but no money in it. We'd counted on getting married, but weren't worried about the money side of it because we knew we'd be jolly well off one day.
And now you see we're not. What's more, Anstey's, that's the family place, and Edward and I both love it, will probably have to be sold, and Edward and I feel we just can't bear that. But if we don't find Uncle Matthew's money, we shall have to sell."
"You know, Charmian, we still haven't come to the vital point."
"Well, you talk then."
"It's like this, you see. As Uncle Matthew grew older, he got more and more suspicious. He didn't trust anybody."
"That's very wise of him. The depravity of human nature is unbelievable."
"Well, you might well be right. Uncle Matthew thought so, anyway. He had a friend who lost his money in a bank, and another friend who was ruined by an absconding solicitor, and he lost some money himself in a fraudulent company. He got so that he used to hold forth at great length that the only safe and sane thing to do was to convert your money into solid bullion and bury it.
Ah, well, I begin to see.
Yes. Friends argued with him, pointed out that he'd get no interest that way, but he held that didn't really matter. The bulk of your money, he said, should be kept in a box under the bed, or buried in the garden. Those were his words.
And when he died, he left hardly anything at all in securities, though he was very rich. So we think that's what he must have done.
We found that he'd sold securities and drawn out large sums of money from time to time, and nobody knows what he did with them. But it seems probable that he lived up to his principles, and that he did buy gold and bury it.
He didn't say anything before he died? Leave any paper? No letter? That's the maddening part of it. He didn't. He'd been unconscious for some days, but he rallied before he died. He looked at us both and chuckled. A faint, weak little chuckle. He said, "You'll be all right, my pretty pair of doves." And then he tapped his eye, his right eye, and winked at us. Then he died. Poor Uncle Matthew. He tapped his eye.
Yes, does that convey anything to you? It made me think of an Arsène Lupin story, where there was something hidden in a man's glass eye. Uncle Matthew didn't have a glass eye.
No. I can't think of anything at the moment. Oh, Jane told us you'd say at once where to dig. Well, I'm not quite a conjurer, you know. I didn't know your uncle or what sort of man he was, and I don't know the house or the grounds. If you did know them? Well, it must be quite simple, really, mustn't it? Simple? Will you come down to Anstey's and see if it's simple? It is possible that she did not mean the invitation to be taken seriously, but I certainly did want to see the place. So I said quite briskly, "Well, really, my dear, that's very kind of you. I've always wanted to have the chance of looking for buried treasure. And with a love interest, too." You see, we had just completed a grand tour of Anstey's. We have been round the kitchen garden, heavily trenched, and through some little woods, where every important tree had been dug round, and I gazed sadly on the pitted surface of the once smooth lawn. We went up to the attic, where old trunks and chests had been rifled of their contents. We went down to the cellars, where flagstones had been heaved unwillingly from their sockets. They had measured and tapped the walls, and I was shown every antique piece of furniture that contained, or could be suspected of containing, a secret drawer. On a table in the morning room were a heap of papers, all the papers that the late Matthew Stroud had left. Not one had been destroyed, and Charmian and Edward were wont to return to them again and again, earnestly perusing bills, invitations, and business correspondence in the hope of spotting a hitherto unnoticed clue. "Can you think of anywhere we haven't looked?" I shook my head. "You seem to have been very thorough, my dear." "Perhaps, if I may say so, just a little too thorough. I always think, you know, that one should have a plan. It's like my friend Mrs. Eldridge. She had such a nice little maid, polished linoleum beautifully, but she was so thorough that she polished the bathroom floor too much, and as Mrs. Eldridge was stepping out of the bath, the cork mat slipped from under her, and she had a very nasty fall, actually broke her leg. Most awkward, because the bathroom door was locked, of course, and the gardener had to get a ladder and come in through the window. Oh, terribly distressing to Mrs. Eldridge, who had always been a very modest woman."
Yes, I'm sure it must have been most distressing.
Please forgive me, so apt, I know, to fly off at a tangent. But one thing does remind one of another, and sometimes that is helpful. All I was trying to say was that perhaps if we tried to sharpen our wits and think of a likely place—
You think of one, Miss Marple. Charmian's brains and mine are now only beautiful blanks.
Dear, dear, of course, most tiring for you. If you don't mind, I'll just look through all this. That is, if there's nothing private in the papers. I don't want to appear to pry.
Oh, that's all right, but I'm afraid you won't find anything.
I sat down by the table and methodically worked through a sheaf of documents. As I replaced each one, I sorted them automatically into tidy little heaps, and when I had finished, I sat staring in front of me for some minutes. Edward asked me, not without a touch of malice, "Well, Miss Marple?" "Oh, I beg your pardon. Most helpful."
You found something relevant?
"Oh, no, nothing like that. But I do believe I know what sort of man your Uncle Matthew was. Rather like my own Uncle Henry, I think. Oh, fond of rather obvious jokes. A bachelor, evidently. I wonder why. Perhaps an early disappointment. Methodical up to a point, but not very fond of being tied up. So few bachelors are. Very fond of puns, my Uncle Henry. And to some people puns are most annoying. A mere play upon words may be very irritating. He was a suspicious man, too. Always was convinced the servants were robbing him. And sometimes, of course, they were, but not always. It grew upon him, poor man. Towards the end he suspected them of tampering with his food, and finally refused to eat anything but boiled eggs. Said nobody could tamper with the inside of a boiled egg. Dear Uncle Henry. Used to be such a merry old soul at one time. Very fond of his coffee after dinner. He always used to say, "This coffee is very Moorish," meaning, you know, that he'd like a little more. That was a pun. I could see that Edward was feeling that if he heard any more about my Uncle Henry he would go mad. He was fond of young people too, but inclined to tease them a little, if you know what I mean. He used to put bags of sweets where a child just couldn't reach them. I think he sounds horrible. Oh, no, dear, just an old bachelor, you know, not used to children. And he wasn't at all stupid, really. He used to keep a good deal of money in the house, and he had a safe put in, made a great fuss about it and how very secure it was. As a result of his talking so much, burglars broke in one night and actually cut a hole in the safe with a chemical device.
Served him right.
Ah, but there was nothing in the safe. You see, he really kept the money somewhere else. Behind some volumes of sermons in the library, as a matter of fact. He said people never took a book of that kind out of a shelf.
I say, that's an idea. What about the library?
Do you think I hadn't thought of that? I went through all the books Tuesday of last week when you went off to Portsmouth. Took them all out, shook them, nothing there.
Oh. Well, it was awfully good of you to come down, Miss Marple, and try to help us. I'm sorry it's been such a washout. I feel we've trespassed a lot on your time, so I'll get the car out, and you'll be able to catch for 3:30.
Oh, but we've got to find the money, haven't we? You mustn't give up, Mr. Rossiter. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
You mean you're going to go on trying?
Strictly speaking, I haven't begun yet. First catch your hare, as Mrs. Beeton says in her cookery book. A wonderful book, but terribly expensive. Most of the recipes begin, "Take a quart of cream and a dozen eggs." Oh, let me see, where was I? Oh, yes. Well, we have, so to speak, caught our hare. The hare being, of course, your Uncle Matthew. And we've only got to decide now where he would have hidden the money. It ought to be quite simple. Simple? Oh, yes, dear. I'm sure he would have done the obvious thing. A secret drawer, that's my solution.
You couldn't put bars of gold in a secret drawer.
No, of course not. But there's no reason to believe money is in gold. He always used to say so, did my Uncle Henry, about his safe. So I should strongly suspect that was just a blind. Diamonds, now they could be in a secret drawer quite easily.
But we've looked in all the secret drawers. We had a cabinet maker over to examine the furniture.
Did you, dear? That was clever of you. I should suggest your uncle's own desk would be the most likely. Was it the tall escritoire against the wall there? Yes, and I'll show you. Charmian went over to it and took down the flap. Inside were pigeonholes and little drawers. She opened a small drawer in the centre and touched a spring inside the left-hand drawer. The bottom of the centre recess clicked and slid forward. Charmian drew it out, revealing a shallow well beneath. It was empty. Now, isn't that a coincidence? Uncle Henry had a desk just like this, only his was burr walnut and this is mahogany. At any rate, there's nothing there, as you can see. I expect your cabinet-maker was a young man. He didn't know everything. People were very artful when they made hiding-places in those days. There's such a thing as a secret inside a secret. I extracted a hairpin, and straightening it out, such a waste, stuck the point into what appeared to be a tiny wormhole in one side of the secret recess. With a little difficulty, I pulled out a small drawer. In it was a bundle of faded letters and a folded paper. Edward and Charmian pounced on the find together. With trembling fingers, Edward unfolded the paper. He dropped it with an exclamation of disgust.
"It's a damned cookery recipe! Baked ham!"
Charmian was untying a ribbon that held the letters. She took one out and glanced at it. Love letters. Oh, how interesting! Perhaps the reason your uncle never married. Do read it, dear. My ever dear Matthew, I must confess that the time seems long indeed since I received your last letter. I try to occupy myself with the various tasks allotted to me, and often say to myself that I am indeed fortunate to see so much of the globe, though little did I think when I went to America that I should voyage off to these far islands. Where is it from? Oh, Hawaii! Alas, these natives are still far from seeing the light. They are in an unclothed and savage state, and spend most of their time swimming and dancing, adorning themselves with garlands of flowers. Mr. Gray has made some converts, but it is uphill work, and he and Mrs. Gray are sadly discouraged. I try to do all I can to cheer and encourage them, but I, too, am often sad for a reason you can guess, dear Matthew. Alas, absence is a severe trial for a loving heart. Your renewed vows and protestations of affection cheered me greatly. Now and always you have my faithful and devoted heart, dear Matthew, and I remain your true love, Betty Martin. P.S. I address my letter under cover of our mutual friend Matilda Graves, as usual. I hope heaven will pardon this little subterfuge.
Well, must have been a female missionary. So that was Uncle Matthew's romance. I wonder why they never married.
She seems to have gone all over the world. Mauritius, all sorts of places. Probably died of yellow fever or something.
I'm so pleased the recipe for baked ham is so interesting, Miss Marple.
Baked ham with spinach. Take a nice piece of gammon, stuff with cloves and cover with brown sugar. Bake in a slow oven. Serve with a border of pureed spinach. Well, what do you think of that now?
I think it sounds filthy.
No, actually it would be very good. But what do you think of the whole thing? A sudden ray of light illuminated Edward's face.
Do you think it's a code, a cryptogram of some kind? Let me see. Look here, Charmian, it might be, you know. No reason to put a cooking recipe in a secret drawer otherwise.
Exactly. Very, very significant. I know what it might be. Invisible ink. Let's heat it. Turn on the electric fire. No signs of writing appeared under this treatment. I really think, you know, that you're making this rather too difficult. The recipe is only an indication, so to speak. It is, I think, the letters that are significant. The letters? Especially the signature.
Charmian, come here. She's right. Do you see the envelopes? They're old, right enough, but the letters were written much later.
Exactly.
They're only fake old. I bet anything old Uncle Matt faked them himself.
Precisely.
The whole thing's a sell. There never was a female missionary. It must be a code.
My dear, dear children, there really is no need to make it all so difficult. Your uncle was really a very simple man. He had to have his little joke. That was all. For the first time they gave me their full attention. What do you mean, Miss Marple? I mean, dear, that you are actually holding the money right now. The signature, dear, that gives the whole thing away. The recipe is just an indication. Shorn of all the cloves and brown sugar and the rest of it, what is it actually? Why, gammon and spinach, to be sure. Gammon and spinach. Meaning nonsense. So it's clear that it's the letters that are important. And then, if you take into consideration what your uncle did just before he died, he tapped his eye, you said. Well, there you are. That gives you the clue, you see. Are we mad, or are you? Surely, my dear, you must have heard the expression meaning that something is not a true picture. Or has it quite died out nowadays? All my eye and Betty Martin.
What? Betty Martin?
Of course, Mr. Rossiter. As you have just said, there isn't and wasn't any such person. The letters were written by your uncle, and I dare say he got a lot of fun out of writing them. As you say, the writing on the envelopes is much older. In fact, the envelope couldn't belong to the letters anyway, because the postmark of the one you are holding is 1851. And that explains everything, doesn't it?
Not to me.
Of course. I dare say it wouldn't to me, if it weren't for my great-nephew Lionel. Such a dear little boy, and a passionate stamp collector. He knows all about stamps. It was he who told me about the rare and expensive stamps, and that a wonderful new find had come up for auction, and I actually remember his mentioning one stamp. An 1851 blue 2-cent. It realized something like $25,000, I believe. Fancy! I should imagine that the other stamps are something also rare and expensive. No doubt your uncle bought them through dealers, and was careful to cover his tracks, as they say in detective stories.
Oh, no.
What's the matter?
Nothing. It's only the awful thought that but for Miss Marple we might have burned these letters in a decent, gentlemanly way.
Ah, that's just what these old gentlemen who are very fond of their jokes never realise. Uncle Henry, I remember, sent a favourite niece a £5 note for a Christmas present. He put it in a Christmas card, gummed the card together, and wrote on it, "Love and best wishes. Afraid this is all I can manage this year." She, poor girl, was annoyed at what she thought was his meanness, and threw it all straight into the fire. Then, of course, he had to give her another.
Miss Marple, I am going to get a bottle of champagne, and we will all drink the health of your Uncle Henry.